Discover the incredible signal from the hidden single dad in 12F that inspired F-22 pilots to soar. In the gritty heart of the city, where hope intermingled with struggle, Jake worked in his garage, a modest mechanic with dreams that had all but faded. Each day, he wielded wrenches among the rumble of engines, pouring love into the rusted bodies of old cars. But beyond the clatter and grease, in the soft warmth of apartment 12F, a sweeter melody echoed the laughter of his young daughter, Emily. Their simple life was painted with warmth, from homemade dinners of mac and cheese shaped like stars to living room dance parties that illuminated even the darkest days. As the sun dipped low, Jake's thoughts drifted to the planes roaring overhead, a reminder of his childhood dream of soaring through the skies. The rumble of F-22s from the nearby Air Force Base pierced the evening air, igniting whispers of what-ifs in his heart. Little did he know, his gentle flickers of light from their window, a secret code he created for Emily, were about to send shockwaves through their lives. One evening, as Jake hunched over a vintage engine, lost in thought, a retired Air Force veteran named Tom noticed the lights dancing rhythmically through the cracked window of apartment 12F. Intrigued, he felt a familiar spark of creativity and ingenuity. Memories of his own scrappy upbringing flooded back, the determination to rise against the odds. Compelled by the flickering lights that seemed to signal something greater, Tom reached out to the local Air Force base. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. News of the mechanic from 12F, the dad who communicated with his daughter through flickering lights, spread like wildfire. The community erupted in excitement, rallying around Jake, ready to lift him up. He was no longer just a mechanic, he was a symbol of resilience and creativity. The airshow featuring the majestic F-22 jets loomed closer, and a shift began in the quiet rhythm of life in their rundown building. But with it came a whirlwind of anxiety. Jake stood at the crossroads between the quiet life he cherished with Emily and the allure of recognition. Could he inspire others without losing the magic of their world? As the deafening roar of jets echoed overhead on the day of the airshow, Jake's heart raced with pounding pride and trepidation. Friends and neighbors gathered, eyes filled with admiration, expecting him to step into the light. Yet, in that moment, he felt the tightness in his chest, the weight of expectation pressing down. As the plane spun and twirled in the sky, Jake stood frozen. Should he let this moment lift him from the grime of responsibility or protect the precious bond he and Emily had woven so carefully? His gaze turned to her, skipping through the yard, innocent and untouched by the tumult of the outside world. And deep down, the flickering light of truth began to illuminate his heart. What did it mean to truly soar? What choice would he make as he hovered on the edge of two worlds, one calling him towards destiny while the other held the pure joy of fatherhood? Jake's heart raced as the roar of the F-22 jets faded into the distance, a fleeting reminder that he stood on the brink of something monumental. But how could he choose between the life he shared with Emily, a life rich with laughter, dance parties, and late-night stories, and the recognition that beckoned him like an overpowering wave? Emily's bright eyes sparkled as the jets finished their maneuvers, dazzled by the spectacle above. She looked over at Jake, her little face glowing with pride. "Daddy, did you see that one? It looped like a roller coaster." Her excitement was contagious, yet in that moment, Jake felt a knot tightening in his chest. He knew she saw him as her hero, the father who filled her world with adventure and wonder. But what if seeking recognition transformed him into someone unrecognizable to her? What if the spotlight dimmed their magic? Even as the crowd cheered, all he could hear was the whisper of doubt invading his mind. Could fame come at a personal cost? Just then, Tom, the Air Force veteran, approached him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Jake, this is your moment. You inspired them. Your messages, man, they've sparked something special." Jake forced a smile, but the worry still lingered. Yeah, but what happens after this? Will I become some kind of spectacle? Tom's eyes softened. You're not a spectacle. You're a dad who found a way to connect with his daughter. That's what's inspiring. Taking a deep breath, Jake watched as Emily spun in circles, arms outstretched, resembling one of those jets flying high above. That image, the carefree joy of his little girl, shone brighter than any spotlight could. Suddenly, the decision felt clearer. Just as he began to feel the pressure lifting, a voice rang out through the gathered crowd, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest. Please welcome the mechanical genius from apartment 12F. Jake's breath caught in his throat. It was time. But instead of stepping forward into the limelight, he glanced at Emily, who now stood clutching her favorite stuffed dinosaur, her innocent gaze locked eagerly on him. Was there a way to weave his aspirations into the fabric of their lives? Could he inspire others while protecting the world they cherished together? "Emily," he said, holding out his hand, "let us go together." She beamed, bounding over excitedly to grasp his hand. As they approached the crowd, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about him or whether he would be celebrated. It was about showing Emily that they could dream together, inspire together, and soar together. The murmurs of awe from the crowd cascaded around them like the jets cutting through the sky above. "There's the man with the light show!" someone exclaimed, and cheers erupted. Standing side by side with Emily, Jake remembered something he always told her, that to truly shine, one must be true to themselves. He took a deep breath, heart swelling with pride, and began sharing their story, the flickering lights, the connection, and the dreams. As he spoke, he noticed how the crowd leaned in, captivated. Somewhere in the audience, he glimpsed Tom nodding with approval, and a sense of calm washed over him. Maybe this was what it meant to soar, not alone, but with family by your side. Just as the thunderous applause resonated in the air and Jake felt a warmth blossom in his chest, he caught sight of something unexpected in the crowd, a familiar face he hadn't seen in years. Each heartbeat echoed as he locked eyes with Emily's mother, Sarah. Was this what he had been hoping for? Or a new twist that might unravel everything? His pulse raced with a mix of shock and possibility as he recalled the last time he saw her. Would she recognize the man he had become? How would this reunion reshape their lives? Jake's heart pounded as he stood before the crowd, momentarily forgetting his speech, his world narrowing down to the woman he once loved. Sarah. The name echoed in his mind like a distant, haunting melody. Her presence stirred a whirlwind of emotions: fear, excitement, unresolved feelings. As if sensing his uncertainty, Emily squeezed his hand tighter, pulling his focus back to her joyful, trusting face. "Daddy, is that a friend?" She tilted her head, wide-eyed with innocence, utterly oblivious to the storm brewing in her father's heart. "Yeah, something like that," Jake managed to say, his voice wavering. He wanted to tell her everything, wanted to shield her from the tangled history he shared with Sarah. But as he stood there, he felt the weight of his past pressing down on him, intertwining with the new life he was building. The applause from the crowd faded into a haze as he and Sarah exchanged silent glances. Each second stretched into a lifetime. She looked older, more mature, yet still held that familiar spark in her eyes. It was the same sparkle that had captured his heart so many years ago. The fear of judgment crossed his mind. Would she see the aims he had achieved? Would she be proud? Or would she see a man still trying to find his way? Before he could overthink it further, Jake took a step forward, reluctantly drawing Emily along. The crowd parted like waves as they approached Sarah, with whispers cascading around them. Tom's approving nod from the back seemed a lifetime away. Sarah's voice was soft, as if she was afraid to disrupt the fabric of the warm afternoon. "I didn't think I'd see you here. I heard about the event but didn't know you would be participating. I needed a place to, share our story," he said, gesturing toward Emily, who stared at her mother, fascinated. "This is Emily. My daughter." The surprised look on Sarah's face was almost comical, her eyes widening as she knelt to Emily's level. Hi there, sweet girl, she said, the warmth of her voice melting Jake's defenses. You look so much like your dad. Emily grinned. Thank you. Daddy made the lights for the jets. Sarah's gaze shifted to Jake, and it was as if 1,000 unspoken words hung in the air between them. You've done quite a bit, she finally said, her admiration evident. I'm glad to see you happy. Jake wanted to say thank you, to feel the praise wash over him with pride. But what if her admiration came with strings attached? What if it molded into expectations he couldn't meet? As he struggled to find the words, uncertainty settled in. This couldn't just be a chance meeting. It felt more significant, more complicated. What about you? He asked cautiously. What's brought you back? This seems to be a good moment for renewal, she replied, searching his face. I'm trying to figure things out, too. Emily, blissfully unaware of the emotional battlefield, jumped in. Can we play the rolling game after this? She chirped. It's so much fun. Jake chuckled, a flicker of warmth breaking through the tension. He kneeled down beside her. Honey, how about we make a deal? If this ends well, we'll do the game together. Sarah offered a small smile, but Jake could see the lines of pain underlying her joy. The recognition of shared pasts lingered between them, but he refused to dwell on what might have been. As the crowd began to cheer again, he felt a strange mix of exhilaration and nostalgia, but it faded as an unexpected thought tripped him up. Would this reconnection change everything? Or would it lead him down a path he wasn't ready to navigate? When he turned back to the crowd, ready to finish what he started, he saw the eager faces watching him. They deserved to know his story. He owed them that. He owed Sarah that, and most importantly, he owed it to Emily, but how would he blend the past with the present? Would reaching out to Sarah complicate the bond he was trying to solidify with his daughter? With thoughts racing, he took a long breath, his heart beating in sync with the anticipation around him. The moment he had been waiting for was so close, yet it felt burdened with uncertainty. What answers awaited him in the depths of this unexpected reunion? And as he prepared to speak again, the horizon hovered with the promise of revelations both thrilling and daunting. What price would he have to pay for clarity in the chaos? Jake stood before the crowd, the echoes of Sarah's voice still ringing in his ears. The applause faded into the background, leaving him with a labyrinth of emotions. He could feel Emily's small hand in his, steady and trusting, but the weight of expectation pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. Okay, Dad, she whispered, her innocence a bright beacon amidst the confusion swirling in his chest. You can do it. The words gave him a surge of strength. He adjusted the microphone in front of him, trying to focus on every face looking back. But his mind kept drifting back to Sarah, her smile, the softness in her eyes. Hello, everyone. Jake began, his voice uncertain. Thank you for being here today. He glanced at Emily, who was now beaming at him. I promised to tell you about my journey as a single dad and, honestly, how challenging it has been, but also how beautiful. As he spoke, he shared snippets about how Emily brought color to his otherwise gray days. He talked about their tiny kitchen adventures, making pancakes that looked like dinosaurs and playing imaginary airplane pilots. Each story elicited chuckles and heartwarming smiles from the crowd. But even as he recounted those moments, he couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was a part of this story too, not as a ghost from the past, but as a flickering flame of possibility. Could they build a future together, despite the years that had separated them? He caught Sarah's eye again, and for a brief moment, they were lost in a silent conversation. He admired her bravery, her willingness to come back and face ghosts of the past. I know I've talked about my daughter a lot, he said, swallowing hard, but Daddy. Emily chimed in, her little voice cutting through the tension. Are you going to talk about the flying jets now? Laughter erupted. It was as if Emily had pulled a string that tied together the complexities of their lives with pure joy. Jake smiled, grateful for his daughter's ability to steer him back to the moment. Yes, exactly. I should get to that, huh? He transitioned smoothly, sharing how he'd worked hard to design lighting for the jets, intertwining stories of late nights, laughter, and the thrill of watching his ideas take flight. The crowd grew captivated, their eyes brightening with every word. But as he wrapped up, that familiar pang of uncertainty clawed at him. What was he really saying? In this moment of connection, what did he truly want? And in all of this, I realize, he continued, that being a single dad isn't just about the struggles. He hesitated, looking at Sarah, the weight of his past clinging to both of them like a shadow. It's about building a future, defining what family looks like. The applause that followed felt electric, vibrating in his veins. Cheers erupted, and people shouted encouragement. Jake beamed, but inside, doubt still lingered. Could they really redefine their family? When the excitement settled, he let the silence grow between them, contemplating what came next. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes radiating hope. Jake, I want to, she began, only for the crowd's applause to drown her out, sending waves of uncertainty crashing into him again. A sudden hush fell over the audience, their expectant eyes shifting between them. Do you want to catch up? She finally asked, the question hanging just above the noise. Jake's heart raced. Could this be the moment that unraveled everything? He glanced down at Emily, who, delightfully unaware, twirled her hair, lost in childlike wonder. He felt the weight of both their futures resting on this one. The thought of stepping into the unknown sent chills down his spine. But could he muster the courage to step forward? He opened his mouth to speak, a world of possibilities blooming before him. But before he could form the words, a loud crash resonated behind them, drawing everyone's attention. All eyes turned toward the noise, and Jake felt his heart skip a beat. What now? Change was in the air. And with it, lurking questions and possibilities trembled like leaves in a storm. Before Jake could grasp the moment, the loud crash behind him shattered the stillness. It sounded like metal meeting the floor, sharp and jarring. Panic rippled through the crowd as a few people gasped, and Jake instinctively tightened his grip on Emily's small hand. Stay close, he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. She nodded, eyes wide, lips slightly parted in surprise. Jake turned to see what had caused the commotion. A table was overturned, and a stack of chairs had toppled over like a house of cards. He scanned the area and spotted a young man stumbling back from the mess, an empty drink cup rolling away from his grasp. Sorry. I tripped. The man called out, his face flushed as laughter erupted among the crowd, easing the tension. Jake forced a chuckle, grateful for the release of anxiety. Just moments ago, he was standing on the edge of a pivotal decision, and now, with his heart racing, he felt life shifting around him in unpredictable ways. The unexpected interruption had sparked a renewed energy within the audience, and he watched as people regained their composure, eager to hear more from him. Guess that's what happens when you get too excited, huh? He said, trying to play it off and drawing a few light-hearted laughs. Feeling the smile return to his face, he refocused on Sarah, but the moment had shifted the energy between them. He had a fleeting sense that the audience was no longer just waiting for answers from him, they were experiencing a connection around the unforeseen chaos, a unity in vulnerability. Where was I? He asked, glancing at Emily, who was still watching him intently, soaking it all in like a sponge. Ah yes. Rebuilding, redefining. His gaze drifted back to Sarah, who seemed to absorb every word. But the previous doubt flickered back, sharper now. What did rebuilding mean? The urgency of the moment felt like a wave, crashing insistently against the shores of his heart. Suddenly, Emily broke the spell. Daddy, you should tell them about the jet surprise. She exclaimed, clapping her hands together with glee. That little spark ignited a warmth within him, shifting his focus. Jake smiled brightly. You're right, pumpkin. It's the best part. He took a deep breath and launched into a spirited recount of how he and Emily had built a model jet from scratch, only to discover it could fly. He described their laughter as they fashioned wings out of paper and recycled materials, the joy of their little experiment, and the pride on Emily's face when it soared into the sky. As he spoke, Sarah leaned in slightly, her expression shifting from uncertainty to intrigue. The story seemed to weave a bridge between their past and whatever future they might create together. With the crowd fully engaged, Jake felt gratitude wash over him. Maybe this was his chance to rebuild. He glanced to Sarah, who nodded with encouragement, but then her face shifted again, tightening just a bit. "Jake," she said softly, once the applause began to fade, "about what I wanted to say earlier, maybe now is the perfect time." His heart skipped again, a whirlwind of emotions stirring. Could they really be discussing their future amidst spontaneous applause, laughter, and model airplanes? The notion felt both absurd and daring. He could see people leaning forward, intrigue painted across their faces, the sudden rush of reality against the backdrop of his heartfelt stories. "Wait," Jake interjected, "can we pause for a second?" The world felt like it had narrowed down, closing in on that moment between him and Sarah. Everything else faded as he searched her eyes. Was she ready for this too? There was a long breath between them, heavy with unspoken words, each wanting to break free. The crowd grew hushed again, sensing the shift. The energy, once vibrant and light, now crackled with tension as Jake prepared himself for the weighty moment. Would he step into this new, uncertain territory, or retreat back into the calmness of routine? He took another breath, and then the air shifted again, a soft sound, a whisper of wind over the chaos, as Emily tugged at his sleeve, a reminder of their immediate, tangible reality. "Daddy, are we going to fly that jet now?" Her innocent question broke through the tension. Jake chuckled lightly, caught between laughter and the seriousness of what lay ahead. But there was a deeper question lingering now. Would he choose to take a leap of faith or remain grounded in safety? As the crowd's anticipation hung in the air, Jake realized the balance between his past and future was as fragile as a paper airplane soaring against the wind. And just then, with uncertainty still etched on his face, something in the back of his mind clicked. "Sarah, wait just a moment," he said suddenly, eyes wide. He had something important to ask. But what was it? Could we build something together?" Jake found himself saying, his voice a mix of hope and vulnerability. The crowd, sensing the weight of his question, seemed to hold its breath. Emily blinked up at him, puzzled but curious, as if she sensed the significance tucked behind those simple words. "A plane?" she suggested, tilting her head. "Like a real one? Not just the model?" He smiled at her enthusiasm but kept his focus on Sarah. "I mean, build something that matters," he clarified. "Like a future." The boldness of his words surprised him, tightening his chest, yet he felt lighter having spoken them. Jake expected Sarah to back away, to put up walls. Instead, she held his gaze, and for a moment, he could see the flicker of something interest. "Hope. Together?" Sarah echoed, her voice steady and low. "Yeah," he said, his heart pounding. "We could work on the idea of us, what that would mean, what we could make." Sarah's expression softened, the tightness around her mouth giving way to an almost imperceptible smile. The laughter and applause from the crowd seemed to fade into the background, replaced by a shared quietness that wrapped around them both. But then, doubt snuck back in. Was he moving too fast? He had never been one for grand gestures, for laying everything out on the table. The fear that brushed against him felt almost tangible, wanting him to retreat. Yet the sight of Sarah, the light in her blue eyes, pushed him forward. "Do you think? Can you see it?" he continued, his voice gaining clarity as he unlocked his thoughts. "I mean, being part of something bigger than us." She opened her mouth, then paused, her brows knitting together slightly. "Jake, you know it's not just about you and me, right? There are complications." "I know," he replied, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "But nothing worth building comes without its trials, right? Just look at our little jet. It flew, but not without some crashes." A soft laugh escaped her lips, and for a split second, he felt like they were standing on solid ground again. The laughter in the crowd, now buzzing with anticipation, seemed to return, encouraging them both. Sometimes, I wonder if what holds us back is just fear. What if we embraced doing it together, the mess that comes with it? Jake pressed further, his heart thudding louder in his chest. Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze flickering to the crowd before returning to him. It's just, there's a lot at stake, and I don't want to hurt Emily, she said, her voice thick with concern. Neither do I, he assured her, his face serious now. But I want her to see that love means trying, despite the risks. Wouldn't it be better to show her that happiness is possible, even if it's a little messy? Jake's mind raced, feeling the undeniable urgency of this conversation. The crowd was still watching, waiting for a resolution. And as they held their breath, Jake was acutely aware of the question in the air, his heart pounding with the thrill of uncertainty. Emily tugged on his sleeve again, oblivious to the weight of the moment. Daddy, can we try flying the jet now? He chuckled, turning slightly to her. In a bit, pumpkin. We just need to do a little more building first. Then he turned back to Sarah, their eyes locking. So what do you say? Can we start building together? Take that leap. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, a loud cheer erupted from the audience, temporarily shifting their focus again. Jake couldn't help but smile at the collective energy, but within him, he felt a swell of emotions rising, waiting for her answer as the moment so desperately hung in the balance. And then, the loud crash of a door swung open, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. Jake felt a twinge of panic rise again as a tall figure stepped inside, face obscured. With the unexpected arrival, the air grew electric, and uncertainty swept over him like a winter storm, pulling him back from the edge of his heart's plea. Who is that? Emily asked, eyes wide with curiosity as she pointed toward the door, her innocent question hanging in the air as Jake's heart raced once more. What had he just invited into their lives? The air crackled with a sudden tension as the towering figure entered, stealing the spotlight from the intimate moment Jake had been building with Sarah. His heart thudded in his chest, he instinctively reached down to take Emily's hand, feeling the familiar warmth of her small fingers tighten around his. The crowd shifted, intrigued and apprehensive, as they tried to catch a glimpse of the newcomer. The figure moved confidently, steps measured, entirely focused on Jake and Sarah. As they drew closer, a sudden flash of recognition struck Jake, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Coach Garcia, he whispered, half in disbelief, half in dread. Yes, it's me, the coach replied, his voice booming yet oddly calm. He had been a legend in their town, not just for his coaching skills but for his knack for unwavering intensity in moments of crisis. What are you doing here? Jake asked, the mixture of surprise and unease evident in his tone. Emily's hand squeezed even tighter as she sensed her father's sudden shift in demeanor. I heard a commotion, Coach Garcia said, looking genuinely intrigued. And I thought it might be you causing it. Always looking to get a reaction, aren't you, Jake? Jake couldn't help but force a smile, but it felt strained. Unwelcome emotions surged within him: embarrassment, nostalgia, even a touch of comparison. This was the man who could command a room. And here was Jake, revealing layers of vulnerability he had never been brave enough to show before. Well, Jake stammered, trying to redirect the conversation. We were just talking about some projects. Building projects, huh? The coach replied, his voice laced with an edge of skepticism. He glanced at Sarah and then back at Jake. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of commitment? It's not just about the exciting ideas, Jake. It's about dedication, and knowing when to let go. The crowd murmured in reaction, some squinting in consideration, others eagerly leaning forward as if waiting for the next bombshell. Sarah's brow furrowed, caught between trying to defend Jake and wanting to understand what the coach meant. What do you know about commitment? She shot back, looking right at Garcia, her natural instinct to protect rising to the surface. More than you think, ma'am, he replied, surprising her with a slight nod before turning back to Jake. You talk about building something together, but you need to consider the foundation. It's tender stuff fueled by love but often eroded by fear. You remember those times, right? His words hung heavily in the air, crackling like static. Remembering those times felt like reopening old wounds, and Jake quickly glanced at Emily, who was studying the exchange with wide, curious eyes. "Daddy, what does he mean?" she asked innocently, her voice piercing through the heavy atmosphere. Jake knelt down, pulling her close. "We're just figuring things out, sweetheart," he said, forcing confidence into his voice. He wanted to shelter her from the swirling emotions, but her eyes were questioning, probing. The coach's gaze softened slightly. "Just know, Jake, that every choice you make affects those around you. The path you choose should account for their hearts too." As he spoke, Jake felt a whirlwind of emotions crash inside him. Was he being selfish? Was he ready to dive into something so complex while carrying the weight of Emily's innocence? "Maybe we should all," Jake began, but he was cut off by the coach raising a hand. "Wait," Garcia said. He peered back toward the door as if sensing a shift, an energy that had yet to reveal itself. "This isn't just about us. You might have more distractions than you realize coming your way." With that foreboding note, a soft murmur spread through the attending crowd, anticipation rippling like waves in water. Jake turned, pulsing questions racing through his mind. Who else could be arriving? What was waiting just out of sight? As he stood there, the air thick with tension, Sarah's hand brushed against his, and he knew whatever was about to unfold would reshape everything they had begun to build. Together. "Just promise me," she said quietly, "you won't let fear of the past stop you now." And with that promise echoing in his heart, Jake braced himself as more footsteps approached, the hidden signals of change echoing through the crowd. Would they have the courage to face whatever came next? Would they take that leap together, no matter the risks? As Jake's mind spun with uncertainty, the tension in the room escalated, the subtle whispers mingling into a low rumble. He felt the heat creeping up his neck as he glanced back toward the entrance. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with long hair tied back, her silhouette framed by the doorway. She stepped into the light, face tight with purpose. "Lily?" Jake breathed, barely containing his shock. The familiarity of her presence deepened the knot in his stomach. It had been years filled with ghosted memories and unspoken words. "Just when I thought this couldn't get any more interesting," Coach Garcia remarked, his brow lifting in curiosity. Lily's eyes searched the crowd, landing on Jake, and for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. All the years faded as if they had never existed, and their youthful laughter echoed in his mind. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice steady, despite the undercurrent of conflict. "Yeah, well, life happens," Jake replied, forcing a smile that fought against the rising wave of unease. "You remember my daughter, Emily?" He gestured toward the little girl, who stood, wide-eyed and bewildered. Lily's gaze softened as she knelt down to meet Emily at eye level. "What a big girl you've grown into. Just as beautiful as I remember." Emily's innocent smile broke the serious atmosphere, but Jake could feel the tension still simmering between them. He wished desperately for simpler times when their friendship had been an endless adventure rather than a tangled history filled with heartache. "Jake," Lily began, her tone shifting to something heavier. "I need to talk to you. Alone." Quick glances swept through the crowd, intrigue radiating from every corner. Jake felt the weight of their eyes on him, judging, questioning, and he could sense Sally's unease as she stepped closer, ready to interject if things went awry. "Can it wait?" he asked, an edge creeping into his voice. There was a gnawing urgency to handle whatever weight Lily carried without it erupting in front of Emily or the people he cared about. "No." Her response was resolute, and for the first time, he noticed a hint of fear flickering in her expression. "It can't," Jake nodded hesitantly, feeling the world tip slightly beneath him. He glanced at Sarah, unsure of how to proceed. "Just a second," he murmured, but even as he said it, he felt the collective breath of the crowd hold tight, waiting to see how the story would unfold. With a guiding hand, he led Lily away from the crowded room to the nearby garden, enveloped by tall hedges that echoed privacy and secrecy. The chatter faded into the background, leaving only the sound of rustling leaves and distant laughter. "Why now?" he finally asked, taking a deep breath, the cool air a contrast to the heat pooling in his chest. "Why come here for this?" She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I can't let your past fade away without addressing it." A chill swept through him. The truth. It was a word that always came with a price. "You came here looking for me." "What do you mean?" he pressed, his heart racing as he prepared for what might come next. She took a step closer, the world around them falling silent. "Jake, the way we left things, it wasn't right. There is something I need to tell you, about Emily." His breath caught in his throat. Was she really about to unveil secrets he had long buried? The weight of impending revelations pressed heavily on him. "Before you say anything," he warned, "just think about her. She wasn't part of whatever we had back then. She's innocent." "I know," Lily replied, her voice trembling. "But she deserves the truth just as much as you do." Jake's mind spun with possibilities, doubts creeping in. What was the truth she held? What could change everything he thought he understood? As Jake stood there, fear settled like a fog, thick and suffocating. What could possibly follow that would shake the foundations he had fought so hard to establish? A distant sound made his heart race again, footsteps approaching them. Both, purpose-driven. He turned, eyes wide as another figure drew into sight, a man he recognized with an unmistakable presence. The new arrival had a solemn look that promised disruption. Jake felt a tightening in his chest, realizing that the conversation with Lily was about to change everything again. Could he truly be ready for whatever storm was about to break? As the man stepped into the dim light of the garden, Jake's heart dropped. It was Mark. He hadn't seen him in years, not since the fallout that had splintered their friendship. Mark moved with a confidence that didn't fit with the unease radiating from Jake. "What are you doing here?" Jake asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Mark glanced at Lily, his expression unreadable. "I came for Emily. And to see you, Jake. It's important." "Important?" Jake fought to keep the edge from his tone, but he could feel the tension surging. "We all have important things to discuss, but we don't need to drag you into this." He was desperate to protect Emily from whatever storm was brewing between them. "What's all this about?" Mark's eyes darted back and forth between Lily and Jake, catching the flickers of hesitation, the unsaid words hanging thick in the air. "You two look like you're ready for a confession." Lily sighed, her hands trembling slightly as she gathered her thoughts. "Mark, maybe you shouldn't be here right now." The sharpness of her tone tinged with worry. It was clear she wanted to shield both Jake and Emily from Mark's past, the kind of past that could shatter the fragile ground they were standing on. "Too late for that. I deserve to know what is going on, especially if it involves Emily," Mark said, his voice steady, but Jake could see the cracks of concern in his demeanor. "Emily?" Jake's voice cracked, his protective instincts flaring. "Lily came here to talk about how I fit into her life and hers." Lily stepped between them, her gaze intense. "It's complicated, and I didn't think I'd have to explain everything in front of you both, Mark." "Complicated?" Jake echoed, a bitter taste forming in his mouth. "That's a nice way to say it, isn't it?" "What I have to say is important, Jake." Lily's eyes bore into him, pleading for understanding. But before she could continue, a gust of wind blew through the garden, carrying the distant laughter of partygoers. For a moment, the chaos of the world outside seemed to draw closer, emphasizing the silence between the three of them. "Emily." The word echoed in Jake's head, drowning out the noise around him. She was everything good, everything bright, and every decision leading him here had to protect her. He glanced back toward the garden entrance, half hoping Sally would come looking for him, breaking this tense standoff. "Listen," Jake said, clenching his fists. "Whatever you have to say, it's going to impact Emily's life. Might as well just lay it all out now." Lily's jaw tightened, words lodged in her throat like stones. Mark watched, his expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty. "Fine," she finally said, voice trembling. "Emily deserves to know who her father is." The words hung heavy in the air. Jake's mind raced, disbelief flooding in. Painful memories stirred, ones he had carefully tucked away. The whirling emotions threatened to knock him down. "Wait, what do you mean that you're saying?" Jake stammered, his heart pounding, desperately searching for the meaning behind her confession. Before Lily could answer, the atmosphere shifted again. The shadows seemed to deepen, a new sense of foreboding rising around them. Mark shifted nervously, assessing the situation. "Maybe we should step out of sight," Mark suggested, glancing over his shoulder. "I think we're about to get some unwanted attention." The urgency in his voice felt real now, palpable. Something unresolved was coming, threatening to tear away the fragile threads Jake had managed to weave around his life. "Whatever's happening here doesn't end tonight," Jake warned, his mind swirling in confusion. "It can't." As if amplifying Jake's fears, the sound of hurried footsteps caught their attention. "Who's coming?" Jake turned, holding his breath, realizing that the moment of truth was about to land firmly on his shoulders. Would he be ready to face whatever storm was about to break? He wasn't sure, but he felt every nerve in his body screaming to brace for the impact. What awaited them as the shadows shifted yet again? As the footsteps grew louder, Jake felt his heart racing, tangled with nerves and anticipation. He glanced back at Lily and Mark, their eyes wide and filled with curiosity, but there was a heaviness in the air. The secrets were tumbling forward, and he could feel the weight of them pressing down on him like an uninvited storm cloud. Suddenly, a group of people surged into the garden, their laughter a jarring contrast to the tension that had built among the three of them. The crowd drifted closer, and Jake felt their gaze piercing into his very core. Each face whispered of expectation, each word a reminder that the pivotal moment was right at his fingertips. "Jake! Where are you?" Sarah's voice rang out, echoing through the manicured garden. Relief washed over him, but just as quickly, it was replaced by a sinking feeling. He realized he had allowed his world to spin out of control. "Right here." Jake called back, forcing a smile, the natural instincts to protect and shield overwhelming him. He could see Sarah making her way through the crowd, her eyes scanning for him with equal parts concern and curiosity. "Everything all right?" she asked, her gaze flicking between him, Lily, and Mark. "Just, talking things over," Jake replied, straightening up and squeezing the tension between his shoulders down. He could feel Emily's presence like a beacon, her eyes briefly searching for reassurance. With a deep breath, he turned to the three adults, the family he was desperately trying to piece together, fraught with unfinished conversations and haunting uncertainties. "I think it's time we face this," he said, his voice steadying, resolute. "Whatever's coming, we do it together." Lily took a breath, her eyes a mix of apprehension and gratitude. "You're right. Emily needs to hear this." The tension shifted as they all prepared to confront the looming revelations that had knitted them together in this unexpectedly intricate tapestry. "Let us not keep her waiting," Mark said, stepping back to invite Jake to lead the way. He turned toward the gathered crowd, falling back into the role of protector, fierce and unyielding. As they rejoined the crowd, Jake felt the energy pulse, the air buzzed with excitement as everyone awaited the next chapter of this unfolding story. Emily stood near the edge of the growing throng, face lit with curiosity, unaware of the gravity pressing on her father's heart. "Emily!" Jake called out, his voice carrying in the air. She turned quickly, a sparkle in her eye, the epitome of innocence and unwavering trust. "Come here, sweetheart." She bounded over, her little feet pattering against the ground, and Jake knelt to her level, drawing in a deep breath before revealing the catalyst to their gathering. We have some important things to talk about. Emily tilted her head, her gaze shifting from Jake to Sarah and then back again, sorting through the energy that filled the space. Okay. Like a story? She chirped, easing everyone's tension with her bright-eyed optimism. Exactly like a story, Jake replied, exchanging glances with Sarah. He saw in her eyes a flicker of understanding. They were all about to embark on a journey together, one filled with unexpected twists and turns. Listen closely, Emily, Jake said, finding the right words, his heart steadying with certainty. This is about who we are as a family and the people who matter to us. He gestured for Mark and Lily to join, urging them forward, each representing parts of his past that had shaped him. This involves your mom and me, and some special people from my life. They have stories of their own that fit into ours. Together, they created a circle, Jake, Sarah, Lily, and Mark standing shoulder to shoulder around Emily like a shield of support. He saw the nerves flicker in their eyes, vulnerability etched on their faces, but he also felt the strength in their numbers. What is going on? Emily asked, her innocence a pure beam of light cutting through the surrounding tension. Jake took another moment to breathe, bringing all his love for her into the moment. You have two amazing parents who want only the best for you. And there are other important people, a family that includes all of us. The crowd leaned in, smiles of approval and warmth surrounding them. He felt empowered, grounded. The lingering doubts began to fade as they stood united. Lily took a step forward, gently kneeling beside Emily. I want you to know that whoever I am in your life, I care about you deeply, and I want to be someone who lifts you up. I'm here for you. Me too. Mark jumped in enthusiastically. You're a special girl, Emily, and I want to help your dad take you on adventures. Laughter erupted lightly, a welcome sound that eased the last remnants of tension in the air. Emily grinned, her once boundless curiosity now reflecting understanding. I like adventures, she said, her voice bright and cheerful, as shadows of uncertainty retreated. And in that moment, Jake felt a surge of joy that washed through him like sunlight breaking through clouds. They would navigate the unfamiliar terrains ahead, but with love as their guide and that innocent spirit lighting the way. This was no longer simply about him, it was about weaving a tapestry of resilience with every soul involved. As the tears of gratitude began to blur his vision, Jake realized that their stories, woven together, would create something impossible to unravel. Their lives were destined to intertwine, a family emerging from chaos, transformed. And standing on that precipice of newfound strength, Jake took a breath once again, finding clarity in purpose. Together, we will make our mark. We'll soar high, rain or shine, he declared, tears glistening with hope. The crowd erupted with applause, enveloping them in encouragement. Their lives, once dimmed by uncertainty, now radiated with the brilliance of connection, a beacon of newfound promise. And as the lingering sounds of laughter and love swirled around him, Jake glanced at Emily. He knew now, without a doubt, that their journey was only beginning. Together, as a family, they were ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, a life woven from love, laughter, and all the flavors of adventure. So let us show our support. You need to subscribe now to catch every exclusive story we share. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this channel thriving. Comment below your thoughts about the story and how it touched you, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything.